bring them into the societies. He says, and not look at their culture. It doesn't matter about their culture or their cultural differences if the right things are presented in the same way, going to the common things we all share through emotion. That's what he meant. He didn't say emotion, but he meant through emotion. Then they could bring them into these societies. And he was talking about a greater world of fraternities, bring them all in on the same path. The goal of world government is very old, very, very old. Bankers talked about world government centuries ago, and they said it was inevitable because they were funding the wars that created the big empires. Out of wars come the treaties. Wars change the sides of all opposing factions. That's what Carroll Quigley said. That's one of his main functions. Wars aid governments to get bigger and bigger and bigger. That was a fear of top psychologists 80 years ago, the ones who led their field, like Carl Jung. Carl Jung saw that through the use of wars and the effects on all combatants, all the sides, his greatest fear that government would be stifling. He said that he wasn't worried about an iron curtain across the world. He saw this curtain wrapping round the whole world. Regulations and bureaucracy. We're back with more after this break. Hi folks, I'm Alan Watt. We're cutting through the matrix, and I've gone through some very dry stuff. It's not the usual kind of talk show thing where we get things in bits and bytes and we discuss what the media have given us to discuss. It's to try to show you, for those that aren't interested, and there's a lot out there who are interested, in the forces that help bring us to where we are and that are still in action today. And that is why, as I've said, regardless of the party that you vote in, or you think you're voting, or whatever, the agenda, this world agenda, this global agenda of a planned society, initially run on, or primarily run on socialist-type issues, steamrolls ahead. It doesn't matter who's in, because the main politicians are bypassed anyway. They're kind of like puppets at a show for you to focus on. The bureaucracies behind them are trained in the kind of stuff that I've just been talking about. And they have their mandates. They've had mandates since the League of Nations. And men and women have worked their whole lives and retired, and new ones come in. And that's why foundations and government can predict what kind of society they want to bring in 100 years and carry it through. The bureaucracies themselves have mandates, and they work hand in glove with the big foundations. I was reading a book recently where Mr. Rockefeller, during the Cold War, was so involved with the spooks or spies that they'd often go to him if they couldn't get black budget money, and he'd pull out his checkbook and ask them how much they wanted, who was running what. Back in the Cold War, when that kind of thing could happen. And Rockefeller is the man who's still running ahead today, talking about a global society with a vastly reduced population. There's just too many people, he keeps saying, who funds most universities and who attends all kinds of world conferences, who started up the World Council of Churches and everything else that could help unify everything together. The approach they take is the academic approach, where rather than sit and argue over emotional debates and fight each other and maybe even strangle each other, you sit and use reason. You look for those things which you have in common, rather than focus on your differences, and that's how the world is run. And for those who really want to know what's going on, look at how many world meetings are on right now. Look up the universities, look up across the world, look up universities and see what kind of organization there are. You'll find they're all the same, on board, on track with the same topics, working and bringing in a pre-planned, directed future. Most folk will drift into it and think it's all quite natural. They won't even ask the question, how did all this come about? Powerful forces at work, powerful forces which are well-funded. They work with all the other foundations, they work with all the governments. They get the red carpet treatment with governments. And we are in big, big trouble. And we have been all our lives. Most just didn't know it. That's where the confusion comes in. We don't know the facts. And I'm trying to give them to you. So for those who would like more, just look at my website, donate to me, that keeps me going. And from Hamish and myself in Ontario, Canada, it's good night. May your God or your gods go with you.